Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to put up the A750 against 5 more games, each of the titles capable of ray tracing. Let's see how well the card performs now. Welcome back to more Intel Arc A750 benchmarks. If you missed the first video, I will put a link here on screen somewhere and also down in the description. The test system is still an AMD 7600X with 32 GB of DDR5 memory, and all benchmarks are performed at 1080p. As I missed out on racing games last time, we've got 2 titles this time. First up is F1 2022. Using the Ego Engine 4.0, an engine specialized for racing games. The benchmark you see in the background is the actual benchmark footage recorded on a separate PC. I ran the benchmark in the high and the ultra high preset with the default ray tracing settings, each as displayed on screen now. So how well did the A750 handle this title? Let's start with the results from the high preset. As you can see, the Intel A750 handled F1 2022 at this preset like a champ. With a 89 FPS minimum and 111 FPS average and maxing out at 120 FPS, you can be sure to have an amazing experience. With regard to the frame times and frame times consistency, one of the major critic points when the A750 was released with its first drivers, these are now perfectly consistent, ranging from 8 to an occasionally 11 milliseconds, averaging out at around 9 milliseconds. This is an impressive and great result. And now for the ultra-high preset with all the ray tracing features enabled. Naturally, the game runs much slower, but not to a point where I would have any concerns playing at the ultra-high preset. Yes, we dipped to a min of 46 FPS in between, but the average of 55 and max of 60 means we stay in a small certain FPS range, which should still provide a smooth gaming experience. Also, the frame times increase significantly but are very consistent, so you should not experience any stutters or hiccups. All in all, and as it's a racing sim that doesn't require hundreds of FPS, I would have no concerns running this title at the ultra-high preset on the A750 all day long. Next up is Hitman 3, a stealth action game based on the Glacier engine. As for the settings or preset, I chose to hit the Restore to Defaults button and run the Dartmoor and Dubai benchmarks each, one time with ray tracing disabled and once with all the ray tracing features enabled. In the background you can see a capture of the Dubai benchmark with ray tracing enabled. Except for that small dip to 37 FPS on a scene change, it seems to run great. So let's take a look at the results. Let's start with the default no ray tracing results, which show pure rasterization performance. As you can see, we get around 164 FPS in Dartmoor and 185 FPS in the Dubai benchmark. Big numbers here, but what happens when we enable ray tracing? Of course, the FPS numbers drop by a lot, but still we are completely above the magic 60 FPS average with ray tracing enabled, and Dubai looks so great with all the reflections. Honestly, don't worry turning on ray tracing in Hitman 3 with the Intel A750. It handles it perfectly fine. And please never forget, this is a just roughly €280 card. Next up we have Metro Exodus in the Enhanced Edition. Many call this title the first true ray tracing game. It is already 2 years old, but still hard to run, and it utilizes a hell lot of ray tracing features. In the background you can see the benchmark running at the Ultra preset on the A750. Looks good, doesn't it? So here are the results. As you can see, the high preset was no problem at all for the Intel Arc A750 and Metro Exodus. With almost 100 FPS on average and 99th percentile lows of 64 FPS, the card didn't break a sweat. The Ultra preset seems to be the limit for the A750 though. We still have an average of 80 FPS, but the lows already dropped to 52 FPS. This is still a perfect and great result, don't get me wrong, and you should be able to play this title on the Ultra preset all day long, but there's not much headroom left. Switching to the Extreme preset pushes the boundaries of the A750. We get an average of 51 FPS, but the lows drop to 36 FPS. I think I would stick to the smoother experience of the Ultra preset. Still a great result. Short intermission for a personal message. If you like my content and this channel, consider supporting me. There is a link to my Patreon in the description down below. It's brand new and first Patreon only content coming up there this week. If you're an awesome human being, consider supporting me. Thank you. Next up is another racing title. This time it is Forza Horizon 5, based on the in-house Forza Tech engine. A stunning looking title that instantly suggested to run the game on the Extreme preset with ray tracing enabled in all its glory. Yeah, okay, why not? So I cranked up the built-in benchmark, which you've been watching run in the background while listening to me talk. How well did our little Intel A750 perform? Here are the results. Now look at this. It is pretty darn impressive. The Intel Arc A750 performs really well, especially considering this is the highest preset available in this game. 67 FPS on average, and the stutter count says 3, whatever that is. I guess it means sudden changes to low FPS. I watched the recorded benchmark twice but couldn't spot problems. And did I already mention how good looking this title is? Last but not least, this is not a game, but a pure ray tracing performance test from 3D Mark, well known for the Time Spy benchmark. With Port Royal, they put out a pure ray tracing benchmark, pushing the ray tracing performance of graphics cards to their limits. This looks so beautiful. But how well did our Intel A750 handle this test? Yeah, we broke a record here. Mainly because no one else ever ran the combination of a 7600X with an Intel Arc A750 in Port Royal. The result of 6,804 points is very respectable. To put things into perspective, this is almost exactly the score of a 3060 Ti or a 2080 Super in this test. Wow, this really blew me away. Okay, that's it for today, lads. The Intel A750 keeps impressing me. In the next video we're going to compare it to the RX 6600 from AMD, as it has a similar price point. And yeah, stay safe friends. Alpha, over and out.